World number one, Magnus Carlsen, a guy who just had his first son with Ella Carlsen, is back at the board and feeling a bit sleepy. We've not seen the likes of this in the entirety of the year. It's pretty shocking. 3 Magnus games today in this video, titled Tuesday Chess, played today the 7th of October. It's online blitz battles, and his first opponent with white kicking off with the king pawn is Naroditsky, the most incredible commentator in all of chess history. But here he's actually playing himself, loves a bit of blitz. Magnus going with an aggressive Sicilian. We're in an open game, and b5 takes some space. The bishop's developing, castles, a seahorse is spawned, captures on the board, bishop recaptures, and after Chewbacca's favourite move, the Wookiee one, Magnus whispers, stack my bishop. Now we see this one develop, challenging that strong piece. Rook recaptures, knight developing, and a classic Danya attacking move. Get the queen into the danger zone. The knight rotates round, and now rook d1, bringing that second cannon to the party. Magnus just nudges ahead with pawn h6. He's a little hesitant to castle into the line of the rooks. The bishop could be coming soon. Who knows, the knight or something. And this seems to aim at getting the queens off, so Danya shuts it down. Also pressures the pawn behind, and the king if it ever sits there. So Magnus carries on with this. Queen c5 apparently strong, but not obvious. We see rook e1, queen e5. We know Magnus loves a little queen exchange, and Danya obliges, knight recaptures, and there's a little teeny weeny trap set. What happens if you capture this pawn? Well, the knight just hops calmly back. Rook is trapped. It's a very common tactical motif. So we didn't get it played. That was the analysis zone. Instead, this is on the board. Danya roaring away like a mighty chess lion as he thrusts that f-pawn. And now there is a threat to take. You know, the knight's gone, not trapping the rook. And castles is actually best. Something about it Magnus didn't like, or maybe he just wanted to keep the game a bit edgy. He plays rook g8, and it creates tactical problems, which we're about to see. First, Danya takes the entire centre, lovely jubbly, and before you can say, Magnus, have you seen the pseudocreme? We see the pawn pushed forward. The knight's discombobulated. It's about to activate with a vengeance. But just before we jump into that one, a quiz question. What do these top players all have in common? Well, as you can see, they're absolute chiseled Adonises. Why? Because they understand the critical importance of keeping the body in shape, fit, healthy, active, and that then leads to a sharp, active, healthy mind. And that is where the sponsor of today's video comes in, the incredible bod.coach, an AI personal trainer in your pocket. Yes, someone went and did it, and it's breathtakingly good. I mean, it literally texts you every day to help keep you on track, hold you accountable, which is a huge part of actually hitting your goals, as you can see by the evidence on screen. And not only will the personalized coach tailor a plan to you, but it'll learn your schedule, the equipment you've got access to, the goals you're trying to hit, any challenges you run into, constantly then tailoring the plan, building your workouts. But here's the absolute best part. Instead of paying those eye-watering prices like you would for a personal trainer, you pay like a 30th of the cost. Perfect for busy professionals, parents, out-of-shape chess players, basically anyone who struggles with consistency. It's the app for you. Head down to the link in the description, bod.coach/epicchess. Not only will it get you a fantastic 10% off for a limited time only, but you also get the 7-day free trial to check it out Go to that link while it lasts. It could change your life forever. Give that one a go. Now back to the chess here. So here we have it. It's knight to d5. Brilliancy. Mesmerizing, hypnotizing move. Of course, we have to ask the question, what if you take that knight with the pawn, you know, pawn 1, knight 3. Now, it is actually one of the more playable lines. Well, pawn recaptures, check. King goes, you win back your piece, and white remains a little better, but there's not too much in it. Running back to the game here, Magnus didn't take. His best was actually bishop takes and just play a position like this, but he plays the terrible rook to b8. Now it steps away from this knight fork, winning a rook in the corner, but it steps into this fork. Can you find it? It's knight f6 check, of course, and you can't take, or this, and you even lose, excuse me, a second rook. So these are the problems. King goes, but that is simply an exchange, and it's too much. This is child's play for grandmasters of this caliber. Even some of the people watching this video, I'm sure, could finish off Magnus Carlsen from here in this blitz game with the extra exchange up. Now we see Magnus resign. It's a real hopeless task. You know what to do. The rook's too powerful. King's marching in. You're going to gobble pawns soon. Bishop just can't fight the rook in a game like this. So this was the first one where Magnus went down. Let's now jump to his game against Jeffrey. Had the white pieces. Nimzo Indian on the board. Magnus going for this aggressive line. d5. Doesn't allow white to set up that big centre. So a3. Another pawn push. Not ideal. You should get your bits out, but you do pick up the bishop pair. Black goes for the old pyramid. Party hat pawn formation. Takes. And this is a gambit. Now actually the best line is takes. And this and this. I dare you to take another. You really start getting smashed up. This is much better for white. Less pause there. But in the game, no takes twice. No takes here rather. We saw this move. Whoops, sorry. We saw this move from Magnus Carlsen. Threatening to now take. c5 is strong. Not taking gives white too much initiative. But this was played by Jeffrey. Magnus now takes with an amazing centre. e5 fights back against it. And although this looks so natural, don't play it, not good. This is a huge square to give up. So instead we get knight f3 here. Pawn recaptures. And now Magnus doesn't recapture here. But instead he plays the thrusting move. Pawn e5. And it is good. Not only hitting the knight, but clearing this diagonal. So we see the rook pinning the pawn to the king, but it allows this amazing move of bishop d3. If you take again, castles is coming very fast. Huge white initiative, but Magnus misses it, takes in the centre, also looks good, but bang, this fights back against it. Bishop b2 now required to try and hold things together. Still, of course, this pawn is pinned, but Magnus plays bishop d3 now. The seahorse is spawned and the centre is collapsing. This is the game procedure. Not that kind of procedure like Kramnik loves to do, but just some normal stuff. You could now take this pawn. Probably Jeffrey worried about bishop b2, but the queen finds a home on g5. Different game. This was played. Now bishop g5, and although Magnus is getting a glimmer of counterplay with this and this, after king g7, Jeffrey remains a pawn to the good, and queen g5 allows him to create counter threats very fast. Think this, queen moves, and then you also get threatened with mate. So that's why the bishop drops back to try and cover. Now we see bishop e6 developing, pressuring a pawn. Queen c3 eyeballs the f6 pawn. Rook d4 though, c pawn collapsing, Magnus lifts. This is a massive threat, but a nice fight back from Jeffrey. He first takes, queen goes, and now he plays rook h8. And there's no longer rook g3, or you simply play queen takes. Pawn is now pinned. So in the game, queen f2 sets it up. but queen h4. Magnus got nothing better to exchange. Now we see the pawn drop, and we soon enter this endgame where Magnus is only one pawn down, and these are doubled, but look at the activity of the pieces. The running c pawn, it's so hard to fight against. These ones on the second rank, pair of kebabs there, skewering lots of things. These rooks leave the board. The d pawn is deadly. You could even take, best move, but it advances. Rook e3 best, missed. Now we see rook takes on a3, rook d1 back, and this rook comes behind the pawn. The writing's on the wall. Jeffrey's an absolute monster, especially at blitz. Here comes the a pawn, and Magnus goes for this endgame, as we can see, where it looks like he might be able to hold this draw. Gives the pawn to get to this diagonal, to get to this pawn, but there's a big problem. Although you're desperate to give bishop for pawn, leave yourself with a draw, black's got this move, intercepting the diagonal, and as soon as you try and spin round, cover the square, there's this lovely manoeuvring that can start going on, forcing the bishop to the short side of the board, and you get a line something like this. You know, you can't step in at all. Let's say you wait here. Now the king marches round, and you've got to give ground. Where to go? Say here. Will you get munched? Here's one sample line of how the game could finish. Very likely the knight would have been made. We actually had this in a game I played in my local Beds League just recently, last week. My opponent had the knight and bishop. This checkmate is devilishly difficult to do. There's videos on YouTube showing you how to do it. Trying to learn it with the engine is tough because it does different patterns all the time. Wow, what a difficult checkmate. Good luck with that one. If you can do it, shout out to you in the comments. Now let's go to the final one, because Magnus faces off to FIDE master Artin Ashraf, presumably a young guy, don't fully know the name, the age rather. Plays the king's gambit here, but not the main line of knight f3. Second main line, bishop c4, he goes knight c3. Apparently known as the Mason-Keres gambit. Now it allows this check and a little mini Winnie Bong cloud. Magnus doesn't do this, but it's obviously what he had planned. Instead we get this move, completely weird, because it gives Magnus this massive position. I mean, why would you weaken this diagonal like that? Really strange structure. Pawn d6 now, d3 and g5, holding on to the pawn, which sometimes is good, but here it's just a complete mix-up of ideas. g4, knight hopping in, the whole thing's collapsing. This is apparently best, but this was tried. Magnus takes this pawn here now, and after the bishop drops, fine, there are new problems, new light squares to exploit in the position. Pawn h6 is such a risky move. Can you guess how to carry on here to attack? You go for some kind of alien gambit style-y, Cochrane gambit, call it what you will, kill your opponent gambit, sacrifice on f7. Castles, it's a dream for a king's gambit player. King g6, and the most killer move here is h5 check. Magnus misses it. This is the kind of thing that could ensue. Check, and then the king back, and then bishop e5. And you hit the rook, can't take because the queen drops, and the big problem is if you try this to cover the invasion square from rook and queen, then the knight drops and the whole thing collapses. But missed by Magnus. He plays bishop e5, same idea but different order. Rook h7, that's possible now because the queen's not quite there. This is now the follow-up move from Magnus. What should he have played here? Again h5 check. He goes for this rotation. All looks amazing, but somehow this weird rook lift fights back. Magnus checks, king runs, he goes to Forktown, population Artin, but it's not actually that killer of a move. We find this position on the board. If takes, by the way, this kind of line ensues, completely weird, but apparently black can hold on here. Something funky like this, and you get a roughly level position. Okay, Magnus sensed it wasn't the way to go. So he takes here with check. King goes. Now we see knight takes. He's getting a lot of material, but is it enough here? He's got rook versus bishop and knight. Best is queen d5. He plays queen d6, but queen e7 fights back. And we find ourselves with this rook versus two minors. Usually that favours the minors unless you can activate those rooks fast. And that's where Magnus now struggles. He should definitely play this now. Play this kind of position where the rooks come off. You try and get in behind with one of them. But Magnus does this. We get the bishop taking here. Again, you should go for a rook swap. But he takes with check. King stepping out the box. This rook invading looks a bit scary, but it's really not. The rooks have run out of squares. They're completely forked. Poor Magnus needs to get himself a good night's sleep. Getting absolutely smashed here by a FIDE master from a 1 position. This is outrageous. The second pawn now drops off the board. He's thrashing around trying to win material here, but black is an entire knight up. An active king is too much. The centre collapses and Magnus resigns in this position, -6. His third smashing of the day, although to be fair to him, if we look at the standings, Alireza won. Magnus did finish still in 15th, won the other 8 games. So to be fair to him, even when he's shattered, he's still not that shabby. Hope you enjoyed. Do check out bod.coach, truly fantastic. And have a look at the video on screen for another incredible game of chess. Cheers.